Karen Burchell. These are two of the ATCs that I've made with the backgrounds that I created using the salt technique in my previous video. Please scroll back through my videos if you wish to view this salt technique background video. I hope to leave the link below. So this one, off camera, I merely stamped it with a flower stamp and a sentiment stamp. And I'm going back to my Inktense blocks, and I am just simply rubbing the wet paintbrush on the block and adding color to the flowers and the stamp. I'm doing this because I want the flowers to stand out a little more from the background. I am only using the colors that I have already used in creating this Inktense block salt technique background. And you can see the texture that has been left on this ATC from the salt technique. So you'll see me going in and out, adding color, changing color, you know, rhyme or reason. I want it darker in the middle. I want some shading. I want different colors. I want some surprise and some oomph. I think I go back and I use my Lindy sprays a little bit and apply it on. Just touching up the paints, drying them, getting the right colors. So that's all I'm doing. Sometimes you start with a color and it isn't the right one. So you can dry it, add more, go less. I do stop and I dry in between the layers on this ATC. I was trying there to get some script texture on the wet Inktense block, and it didn't work. In the next ATC, I tried the same technique and it does work, so you'll be able to see that. So there I am trying to use magicals and Lindy sprays just to get a little bit of glitz and glimmer in the center of the flower, and you're going to see me totally undo this in a few minutes as well. I'm kind of playing, it's kind of looking very chalky, not smooth color. I'm not quite happy with it, so I am touching it up and playing with it till I get a color and a texture on the flowers that I am happy with. Here I am kind of scrubbing what's the colors there just with water to activate and blend the colors a little bit more. There was a darker ring around it. I'm looking at the stamp for the details of the flower, and I apologize that I'm off screen. Hopefully this corrects itself shortly, or I correct it, I should say. There we go, a little bit back. Starting to like the purple flower. I've got lights and darks and little bits of violet in there. And a lot of what I'm doing here is just activating it with water and scrubbing with my brush. Trying to put some dark in there to seed. Just shade the center of the flower. One thing I find helpful is I look at the camera screen, and sometimes that gives me a different perspective on how things are looking than looking at it directly. And again, I'm just scrubbing and moving around the paint. Sometimes I don't know when to leave it alone. I have a bit of a darker rim on here that I'm not happy with, so I'm trying to just blend that out a little bit more. And when it looks good to you, that's where you leave it. In between, I'm drying it. You can't see the heat tool, but I am drying it and getting layers of color. With watercolor and Inktense blocks, sometimes adding many layers of light color is better than one dark layer. And I'm remembering that now. I play with this for a good long time. And I just left this in because I wanted to show you that sometimes it isn't always just so easy as what it appears. Sometimes it takes longer. So I'm liking the look of it. I'm going to do some shading with my Stabilo All pencil. If you don't have one of these, you can use an Inktense block, an Inktense pencil, or a watercolor pencil. You could also use charcoal and rub along there to get the shading. You do not need to have this. Sometimes it works out well. One of the problems I'm running into here is because the background is the Inktense blocks, and because it was the salt technique, it wasn't completely activated, so the background is activating with the water, so I can't spread out the shading in a way that I would like here. So my shading is getting looks a little stronger than what I wanted. After the camera was off, I just kind of touched it up with the baby wipe, and I pulled off some of the color, so it's far less distinct. So when you see the final pictures, you'll notice a bit of a difference there. So now I'm just going over with my gel pen, going over the letters that I got saying beautiful, and I'm just darkening the letters and adding some dimension to them a little bit, just to make it stand out again from the background. Because the salt background wasn't quite smooth, it was a little difficult to get a great stamp. So often you have to go back and emphasize what you want emphasized. Just putting the lines again. I'm looking at the stamp and outlining it. The gel pen, although it's from the dollar store and works really well, it is not permanent. So if you were to put Mod Podge over this to seal it, it would reactivate and it would get all smudgy. So if you wanted to seal it, your best bet would be to use a spray fixative. I avoid using them because of the smells. I've got a chemical sensitivity, and it's not something that I like using. I'm just going to put StazOn on around the edge just to put that little black. It just seems to outline the picture. I think I do grab the pencil and add the pen and add some lines around the edge. Just kind of sketchy lines and dots. And it just adds that little bit of detail. Something to mark the ending. A lot of times I do the ATCs as a plan for a larger piece that I may do another time, playing around with the colors and the backgrounds, and it gives me ideas. So there's the one. Here's the other one, and it says follow your art, and this was from a new stamp collection that I have, and the salt technique was with the Neocolor 2s. This is the one where I put the Neocolor on, I activated it off the paper, and I just stamped the sentiment, which is the whole thing, on with black StazOn, which is permanent. So I just decided that I'm going to use my Ceramcoat paints. I've got a blue and a red, and I am simply going to apply it with a brush. I started with the paint being right out of the bottle, and I did thin it out because I didn't want to lose that little bit of script and texture that was below there. So again, this is a way you can use a stamp that you have from scrapbooking or card making and add your own flair to it. So here I'm kind of thinning out the paint on the heart. I want to see that little bit of script. That was a nice detail. Doing a quick dry. So I'm just adding water to the red paint that I had and soaking it up with a paper towel. I will use this paper towel once it's full of color as a collage item on future art projects. I always use up the leftover paints that I have. So I bought a navy paint, and I believe it was the Michaels brand, but it's very, very thin, and I added my Cerem Coat blue to it. It wasn't bright enough for what I wanted. It wasn't giving me the effect I like. So this time I have thinned the paint in the palette, and I'm just using my round paintbrush to fill in the word art. To put back the texture that they had, I'm going to be applying the shelf liner, and you can see the nice texture that has given. It's kind of given a print, and I love being able to do that. It's a quick, easy way to add texture to an area that you've painted. So this time, instead of paper towels, I am going to clean up all my blue paint on coffee filters. I love using coffee filters as backgrounds, using it to jelly print on, and so I'm creating quite a mess. I had a lot of blue paint, and that was quite deliberate because I use a lot of blues in my skies and waters in journal pages that I do. So I'm just cleaning it all up, and I'm going to reuse that, and you'll see that in future videos. And then I realized I wasn't done. I'm going to do the scroll work with my liner brush. And again, making the stamped area stand out. Quick dry. I'm debating whether to use my liner brush or use my black gel pen to outline the words "follow your." So while I'm thinking, I'm going to outline everything else with the black gel pen. And again, the black gel pen you cannot use a wet medium on top of it without smudging it. So you need to fix it if you're going to do that. So it's often the last thing I do. And if I forget, then I make a mess. Usually you can tidy it up with a baby wipe. The black is just giving that little bit of extra outline to it. Just thickening the lines a little bit just so it stands out a little bit more. Using the Stabilo All pencil, I'm outlining the heart with the black and just activating it with water and going around. I just want the heart to really pop. Sorry again, I'm off screen. I believe I'm rubbing it along the edges, and I'm just rubbing it with a wet finger instead of the brush, just to get a faint shadowed look. So thank you for watching. Keep checking, subscribe, and you won't miss the next ATC videos that are coming. There are going to be at least 2 more, maybe 2, maybe 4. Some have the same stamp, so there may not be anything new. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.